He called me Mom the entire time. Right before George Bush came in, they made us take off all our name tags. So he called me Mom, Casey the loved one, and just acted like it really we were at a tea party.
And what did you say to him, the President of the United States?
Well, he came up to me and he took my hand and he looked in my eyes and he said, Mom, I can't imagine losing a loved one in a war, whether it be an aunt or an uncle or a brother or a sister. And, you know, I stopped him before he can go through the whole litany of how Casey could be related to me besides being my son. And I said, wait a second, Mr. President. That's when I still called him Mr. President. Casey was my son, and you have children. Imagine one of your children being killed. And he didn't say anything, and I said, trust me, you don't want to go there. And he said, you're right, I don't. So that was about the one-on-one contact that we had. Then, you know, he talked about how Casey was in a better place and things like that.
You have written in your letter, the letter that you sent out on Memorial Day, that Casey, you have come to the conclusion that Casey died for nothing. Can you explain how you came to this conclusion?
Well, I set out on this quest really to make Casey's death count for something, to make it meaningful, not to be, you know, counted as death and destruction, as occupying a country that was no threat to the United States of America, not for lies. I didn't want to think that he died for lies, that he died because my government is callous and has no regard for human life or human suffering. I wanted his death to count for peace. I wanted to count for love. I wanted to count for justice. And, you know, in this system we have, it's ruled by the corporations. It's ruled by the corporate war profiteers. They use people like they're things and not people. And I am just really devastated and frustrated with an American population, you know, not counting the people who listen to your show or who watch your show, an American population that doesn't give the Iraq War one, you know, bit of attention, doesn't think about it, doesn't have to think about it. They don't want to think about the death and destruction and the pain that's being caused by the government that they're giving their tacit support to by their silence. You know, we care more about who's the next American Idol, what was in Anna Nicole's refrigerator when she died, than the hundreds of thousands of innocent lives that have been sacrificed for the greed for power and money that this country is always on the prowl for. So it just makes me think that Casey is going to go down in a long line of people who have been sacrificed to the corporate war machine in this country.
We're talking to Cindy Sheehan, lost her son Casey April 4th, 2004, founded Camp Casey, where thousands have come almost on a kind of pilgrimage outside the estate of President Bush in Crawford. Since that time, Cindy has actually bought property in Crawford. Can you talk about your decision to buy the property, Cindy, and now in your letter that you wrote on Memorial Day saying you're putting it up for sale?
Well, after we left Crawford in August of '05, the McLennan County supervisors passed an ordinance that there's no camping or parking or sleeping along the sides of Prairie Chapel Road. And, you know, we think that was a direct, specific, and targeted ordinance against free speech, against the First Amendment, really, which gives you the right to petition your government for redress of wrongs and gives you the right to peaceable protest. And, you know, no matter what anybody says or any criticism they can have about me or Camp Casey, the protests there have always been very peaceable and always been very positive. So I decided if we wanted to keep having these gatherings in Crawford, Texas, we would have to own property. So I purchased 5 acres. It's right inside the town of Crawford. And I really think now that this part of my activism is over, and that I think Camp Casey has served its purpose. And I think I have gone as far as I can right now in the movement. I've come to a roadblock. I've come to a dead end. I've come to a brick wall. So, and then, of course, I have, decimated all of my resources, my monetary resources on this activism, on this cause, in the movement, that I need, resources to just be able to survive. And so that's why I decided to sell Camp Casey.
Cindy, yesterday after your letter came out on Memorial Day and we announced that you'd be on the broadcast for the hour, we were inundated with email from around the country and around the world. In the next part of the show, I want to read some of it to you, but one of the people who wrote, Marguerite from Santa Fe, said that they wanted to financially help you, describing a Cindy Sheehan retirement from the Peace Movement Fund. What is your response?
We have gotten, in any way people can reach me, we've gotten hundreds and hundreds of emails, and very few negative ones, offering support, offering emotional support, offering places I can go to rest, offering financial support. And I'm very overwhelmed, again, by the good-hearted nature of Americans. But I think that we have to realize that if you're going to put so much pressure on one individual, that person has to be supported continually, not get to the point where I did, where I just had to throw my hands up and say, I give up, I can't do this anymore, I don't have any more energy, I don't have any more money, I don't have any more stamina, I have to go away. And there's so many people, there's so many worthy organizations who are struggling financially, who could do so much, who have people who can be effective voices that aren't supported by the peace movement or people in America, the millions of people in America who oppose George Bush and who oppose the war. If they aren't physically able to get out and do the work, then I think that and if they have the financial resources, should be supporting people in the movement who can do this.
As you talk about cash-starved organizations, I think about the tens of millions of dollars that the candidates are raising who are running for president in 2008. That money, majority of it, of course, going to the major corporate networks for advertising.
Right. Well, it's an obscenity. I can imagine people in third world countries looking at, someone like Hillary Clinton raising $35 million for her presidential campaign that goes to really, non-productive means, and they see that, and it's just really immoral, I believe. And we're spending $12 million in Iraq. How many people could that help in not only around the world, but in our own country? It is very immoral and obscene what we do with our resources. There
was a time when you said you would run against Hillary Rodham Clinton for her stance supporting war.
I never said I would run against Hillary. I was heavily recruited or drafted, or people were from the state of New York just really wanted me to run against her for her Senate seat in New York. I did say threatened to run against Dianne Feinstein here in California, though.
When we come back, I'll read you some of what our listeners and viewers and readers have written from around the world. And I also want to ask you more about your family. As you wrote in your Memorial Day letter saying you're stepping back from the anti-war movement, you talked about sacrificing your 29-year marriage and wanting to come home to your children. We're talking to Cindy Sheehan. We'll be back in a minute.